Okay, some rugby league news to discuss. Jason Demetriou has been named as the London Broncos' new head coach from next season until 2028. He has signed a three-season deal. And look, as a London Broncos fan, that tells me that we're very likely to be a Super League team next year. However, I will also say this. It doesn't leave much time for any club from the Championship that has applied to enter the Super League next year, much time to build a competitive squad. The announcement by the RFL and Super League I felt should have happened literally either at the end of last season or the beginning of this season to allow all teams that were interested in putting forward a bid to be a Super League side next year, including those current Super League sides as well, time to get players to sign. And I do feel that yes, the Salford Red Devils are more likely than not going to be a Super League side next year. They may not even be a team next year. And with what's happened with Salford, it is a disgrace what's happened at Salford. They've not put in a bid to have a licence for next year's Super League. So it looks very likely that Salford's not going to be a Super League team next year. Now, with Darren Lockyer's involvement and investment in the London Broncos, and with Jason Demetriou now being announced as the new head coach, and with Regan Campbell-Gillard now having signed for next year, that is a statement of intent from the Broncos as an organisation that they want to be a Super League side next year. That is a real statement from intent. Now, we can speculate who the 14 teams are going to be, because not every Super League team this season is guaranteed with the IMG grading to be a Super League side next year, ironically. And I've been very clear, I'm not a fan of the IMG grading. I think it should happen on the field by merit. And as a London Broncos fan, we've not been good enough this season. I'm happy to say that. We have not been good enough this season. And on a playing standpoint, shouldn't be near the Super League. We have not gained it by on-field merit, like we did the previous time, where we won the games that mattered in the post-season, in the final series, to win that playoff final, to make the Super League for that season we were back up. We won it by merit on the field by winning the games that mattered. This season, we have not been good enough. There are sides above us that on merit could, in theory, go through the playoff structure to make Super League, in my personal opinion. Now, this IMG grading I've never been sold on, personally. I've had my reservations about it. I don't think it's been implemented in the way that it should be, and I think the RFL and Super League have made a mess of the whole system. I think promotion relegation is still a key component of our sporting culture, and it's just I have my views on it. However, in saying that, this also puts to bed speculation that Jason Demetriou was going to be the PNG head coach in the NRL, because the PNG team, we don't know what they're going to be named yet, are going to enter the NRL in 2028 for the start of that season. He is now contracted for that season with the London Broncos. Now, this does throw a lot of things up in the air. It also raises questions about how ready the PNG franchise for the NRL is going to be in 2028, because we're already seeing some of the struggles that the Perth Bears are facing in basically getting players to sign there. Now, at the moment, the Perth Bears can't officially announce any signings for like another, I'm going to say 5 weeks. I think they can start talking to players from November 1st. At the moment, it's September the 22nd. So, at the moment, Mal Meninga and the Perth Bears can't announce any signings or have any discussions, formal discussions with players and player representatives and clubs about getting players to sign, because it's not obviously November 1st and no players have been released from contracts early. Now, they're due to enter in 2027. And the big talk was that Jason Demetriou, because he's coached the PNG national side, would be that inaugural head coach for the PNG. Insert team name here, Hunters, Cummels, whatever. With him now signing with the London Broncos, I think that's a clear sign that the London Broncos are being strongly considered for Super League, especially with Darren Lockyer's involvement. And I wouldn't be surprised if Darren Lockyer was actually more involved earlier in the year as an investor. It's just been made public now. But that's my suspicions. As a London Broncos fan, I'm still not certain this is the right time to take that step back up to Super League. I want the team to be as competitive as possible and win as many games as possible, as any fan would. But considering how this season's gone, and our best players have been pillaged by the other clubs for this season in Super League, I do have my reservations about us building a squad that is competitive enough in time, personally. The same I could say for York, Toulouse, Bradford, Oldham, all the clubs in the Championship. I don't think they've been given enough time to build a squad ready to compete at that higher level. I think we can all be honest on that. I don't think with the announcement the way it was, I don't think that's given those teams wanting to be Super League clubs enough time to put squads together. In regards to Jason Demetriou signing for a 3-year deal, look, he played in the Super League. He has. Look, people will say his last season at South Sydney was a disaster. Anyone coaching that team was going to struggle. Look at Wayne Bennett this year with South Sydney. People go, the injuries. They've still not been good enough. There are issues at South Sydney that were not Jason Demetriou's fault. Now, you could argue his coaching style with some of the players there didn't necessarily work, and we discussed that when he got sacked from South Sydney. But his actual win percentage is actually a pretty solid win percentage for an NRL head coach. He's got that experience as an assistant and as a full-time head coach in the NRL. I think he's a great addition to the European game as a head coach. He brings that experience over. And when you got players of the NRL experience of Regan Campbell-Gillard wanting to sign, that says to me this is a statement of intent from Darren Lockyer and the the wider Broncos organisation to be a Super League side. We are still waiting to find out what teams are going to be announced for Super League next year and what Super League teams are going to be confirmed as staying, or potentially what Super League teams are going to be confirmed as dropping down to the Championship because they haven't made the IMG grading. There is still a lot of uncertainty, but I would hazard a guess that York, Toulouse, Bradford and the London Broncos are all very strong candidates now for Super League. You could argue Featherstone and Oldham as well. And this is where it gets tricky. Because in my personal opinion, and as a Broncos fan, I would rather us have got there by merit like we did the last time we were promoted by winning the Championship Grand Final. And that's my personal opinion. I don't think this grading system factors in a fair bit of on-field merit. I like the stadium we play in now, that the fan base is growing, which is a positive sign. And you look at York and they've done a good job. You look at Bradford with their history, and Toulouse, southwestern France is rugby mad. But I do have my concerns about the viability of this expanded Super League, given the short time frame clubs have been given to build squads that are competitive for next year. That is my massive concern. I'm quite happy with Darren Lockyer's involvement and investment. I'm quite happy with the fact that a fair number of the Broncos players are homegrown locally, from London and the South East, which is a positive sign of growing the game outside the traditional areas. What I'm really concerned about is being competitive enough in Super League next year, should the Broncos end up there. But having Demetriou as a head coach and Regan Campbell-Gillard sign, that's a very strong sign that discussions have been had that the Broncos are going to be a Super League team next year. Now, we shall see what other players are signed by, like York, Toulouse, Bradford, Oldham, Featherstone, you name it, Halifax, all these other Championship sides that want to potentially have a crack at Super League by putting in their bids for a Super League licence. Let's see what other players get signed. And with the Salford Red Devils, it's been an absolute shambles this season. And this is where the RFL and Super League and IMG, the people involved with running the game, they have in part allowed this to happen with the situation getting to the stage it's at. But it's very clear and very obvious that Salford, if they do survive as a club, Jesus, they're not going to be in the Super League next year. They haven't put in a bid to be one of the licence holders for the franchise. That, for me, is a sign that Salford's days as a Super League club are drawing to an end in a very messy way. And as a rugby league fan, I think what has happened at Salford is absolutely criminal and should not have been allowed to happen, but has been allowed to happen by weak governance by the RFL and Super League and then IMG. It's just been a mess. An absolute mess that should never have got to this stage, but has been allowed to get to this stage, which then poses the question of who the Super League sides are going to be next year with this expanded Super League. But there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Place your thoughts in the comments section below. I'll have some more content for you all very, very soon.